Chapter 7. Where did you come from? Damon questioned, as he pointed to a bed she would sleep in. I can't sleep there. She dropped to the floor on a large bear rug. She looked up at Damon with her big brown eyes. I told you before that I didn't know, but I can show you. It would have to wait because it's going to snow tomorrow. I'll have to take you back to your place. You can't stay with me. Are you afraid of snow and girls? She said, slanting her head. Damon thought to meet her on her own terms, so he kneeled down on the rug and sat on his hind legs. He pulled the pillow down from the bed and placed it behind her. She reached and put it in front of her, as if it was a doll she never had or got to play with. I'm not afraid of anything, especially a girl, he said, disguising his true self. And don't get too comfortable. He pulled the pillow from her and tossed it playfully in her face. He stared down at her, his eyes gleaming in the dim light of the cave. His eyes brightened from the sparks from the fire. The girl looked up at Damon. You aren't going to do something to me as I sleep? I'm not into having sex with an unwilling and an unconscious female. Why do you females think that males always want sex? Damon tried to take his mind off of sex. It wouldn't have been a problem with the full moon at its brightest, but the girl is complicating things. What if I'm willing? Would you do it then? She put her finger into her mouth between her teeth. I think I need to have sex, she said with a small childish voice. Damon twisted nervously on his knees, ready to stand and leave. He just didn't want her to know how much she affected him by her presence. He didn't have a female or anyone to relieve the tension of the full moon. By being banished for a while, it had proven to be a good thing. He probably would have found himself waiting outside the hospital where Sadia worked, and made himself a nuisance. He knew how much she was in love with Tracker. I noticed when the full moon was present my breasts became tender and full. The wolf in me desired to be taken. I howled at the moon one night. I need something to calm me, she said as her eyes locked with Damon's. Did that ever happen to you? Damon was thinking about Sadia, and didn't really hear the girl go on and on about how much she needed sex and someone to penetrate her. No, Damon said dismissively. It was different for him. His desire had been worse. He knew her to be a werefemale, even if she didn't know. The full moon was coming. I'll take you home as soon as the snow lightens up. Damon wished the snow would break, but the first snowfall from what he remembered was the most intense one. It could be days or a month before he could hunt, and that's why he had preserved food. Now she was here to make him miserable with her scent and the presence of her warm, inviting body. When he glanced down again, she had fallen asleep. He watched at her before picking her up and transferring her to the bed. Even if she didn't want to sleep in a bed, it was what humans did. He sat on the side of the bed and swept away her long dark hair from her face. It was a pretty face if she washed it. She had a perfect set of large eyes and pouty lips. She turned and her poncho raised and showed a perfect, beautiful, full, youthful behind. Damon's breath hitched and he stood quickly. He walked briskly out of the room and found his father's room. Sitting on the side of the bed with his hand across his mouth, he said, "What the fuck am I doing in a cave?" Damon, conflicted about the girl and taking her, thought his father had no right to send him to the cave to cool off. What would that prove? He would still want Sadia. It wasn't his fault, but he didn't dare tell his father everything Tracker said to him. He paced up and down cursing Tracker and the whole fucking pack thing. There are shifters who don't give a fuck. They're free to be who they are. That's what Tracker rebelled against, the pack mentality. Everything should be for the good of the pack. Fuck the pack and fuck everybody, he said, kicking the head of the bear rug covering the stone floor. Here he was with a young werefemale who doesn't know who she is or what she is, and he's stuck with her for what may seem like eternity. He needed to be in Samseville and out of his father's supervision, like Thorn and Tracker. He needed to be inside a female fucking her night and day, until he tired of her. It had been stupid to follow Tracker and Thorn and not go off to college. At least he would have been from under his father's control. Maybe if he said he had found a mate, then he wouldn't be obligated to marry one of Robert and Mina's daughters. They are so protected that they wouldn't know how to satisfy a lustful werewolf. One who would want her on her knees sucking his cock every night. As Damon sat and thought, the notion came to him to bring the girl back to his family and tell them they were married. As a married werewolf, he could live away from the ranch. But first he had to convince the girl and get her to go along with his idea. Putting more thought into this notion, he came to the conclusion he had to do too much to make her acceptable. But it would be worth it in the end for both of them. He would get his freedom, and she wouldn't be alone in the woods for a bear to stumble across one day, or worse yet, some hunter would kill her thinking she was a wolf. Now he had to sell her on the plan. But that would have to wait. He had long days of hunting and fishing behind him, and now all he wanted to do was sleep. That and find a warm place to put his cock and get an orgasm before he went crazy. Closing his eyes with that last thought, he dozed off. When Damon woke, it was because he saw a figure standing before him. Sitting straight up with a jerk of his body, he said, "You shouldn't sneak around this place." "I wasn't sneaking around. And you were sleeping so soundly, I thought you were dead." "A wolf doesn't sleep soundly." "You're not a wolf," she said. "I never said I was a wolf. I said a werewolf." "What is a werewolf?" she questioned with a furrowed brow. "It's what I am, and you are too." "But how can that be?" "It's just is. One time your parents were human and werewolf, and that's why you're here." "But how did I get here?" Damon didn't want to discuss sex with the girl because it took too much time to understand and too much time and patience to explain. She needed a woman to explain these things. "Get dressed first. No, bathe yourself before you dress. There's a hot spring in the room behind you to the right." "But I don't know how to swim." "You don't swim in it, you sit in it. It's not deep. You have to take all your clothes off. I have some fresh clothes in my room. They belong to my mother." "You have a mother?" Damon couldn't believe that she asked that question. "Yes, I have a mother, and you had one too." "I know I had one, silly, but she's dead." "I thought your mother was dead." "No. That's what I want to talk to you about. But first you need a bath." "Only if you come and help me." "You don't need my help." "But I'm afraid I'll drown," she said, looking down at him with her big eyes. He stood, and she looked at him with his chest bare, and a piece of leather cloth around his small waist covering a large penis. "Why do you have those pictures all over your body?" she asked as Damon walked in front of her, leading the way to the hot spring. "They're not pictures, they're called tattoos." Damon turned around after walking into the section of the cave that felt unusually warm compared to the rest of the rooms. She sat at the pool's edge and put her hand in the water and jerked it out. "Ow. It's hot." "You'll get used to it. Now take off your clothes and slip in." "You first," she said to Damon as a dare. He dropped the leather wrapped around him and entered the water. "See, it's nothing to it. Now get in." "I don't know if I want to be in there with you naked." "Don't worry, you're not my type." "I know that word. And you're trying to insult me." "I thought you didn't know the meaning of some words." "I didn't tell you that. You just assumed I didn't. I remember my mother reading to me. I didn't always live in a cave alone with wolves. I can remember living in a home, but one day some men came by and my mother hid me, and then my mother and father lay down asleep and didn't wake up. When I came out of the closet, everyone was gone except there were a pack of wolves in the house, and one of them took me in his teeth by the scruff of my neck and brought me where I live today." That's what I want to tell you. Or ask you. Do you want to come with me? Damon asked. Where? To my home and live with me. Pretend we're married? I know that word. It means we are together forever. Not exactly. It means freedom for me and a better life for you. But don't I have to love you first? Don't you have to love me? She said, her eyes wide. No. It's a marriage of convenience. It means? She stopped him with a sour look on her face. Her eyes lost their brightness, and her mouth fell in a hard line downward. She stared at Damon. We just live together. She stood up and pulled the poncho over her head, tossing it to the floor. His eyes met her beautiful young flawless body. His eyes traveled from her breasts to the rosy peaks of her nipples which hardened in the cool of the cave. His manhood pulsed when he caught sight of her small waist and her ample hips. Hips that could hold 3 or more pups each time he gave her a litter. And looking at her, he wanted to do that often. She gave him a look of what he would be missing, and then she entered the small hot pool of water next to him. She watched at his face the way his eyes grew large and sweat fell from his brow. When she dipped her face into the water, washing it of all the dirt, and then raising up to catch his blue eyes focused on her, he marveled at her beauty. Every part her lovely body. A young supple body, and he knew she had never been touched. Was this what his father had said? That there was no need to fight over one female when he would probably fall in love someday, and he would meet his true mate. I agree to your proposition, she said, smiling. I learned that word from the book I carried from my parents' house when the wolf took me. I dropped my doll, but I held on to that dictionary. The house I discovered in the forest. You've been there? The girl said with surprise and interest. Her brown eyes sparkling and welling up with tears, but no tears dropped. She passed her hand over her eyes, never wanting to let Damon see her cry. She turned her back to keep from letting Damon see how unhappy she felt. He watched at her long, slick, shiny black hair fall down her back, covering her waist, stopping at her buttocks. He pushed her hair to the side and inched close to her. He kissed her shoulder. The heat of his passion and need flowing through him like lava in a volcano. It had been a long time since he had loved another female. It had been a long time since his penis had felt the inside of warm flesh. It had been a long time since the touch of a female body had sent him into such a sexual frenzy. When he felt the burn and throb of need to claim a female, he would deny himself, but now he could deny himself no longer. He had to have this girl. Her smell signaled to him she had never been touched, and when he reached around to feel her breasts, they were warm and plump in his hands. With the other hand he felt her bud and placed his finger inside her as she stood there with her head leaning back and her body moving as her breath ceased, and a moan of pleasure slipped through her lips. What is this? The girl moaned. It feels so good. Damon grunted, preparing her for his large cock. After he felt her wetness, he picked her up and cradled her in his arms. Her green eyes locked with his blues. She knew that it would be the night she surrendered to him. And just as Damon reached his bed carrying the girl he would mate with, Lysel stumbled out of Adrian's room, defeated and alone, knowing that Adrian would take Wilder's cock in her mouth as she had done with him, and Wilder would release his hungry passion into her under the full moon.